Hey everybody, this is Silver to Bronze, a Marvel Comics podcast, and I'm Tony, and I'm here with my co-host, Scott.
Hello everybody.
Almost like forgot your name or something like that. I had to get that out. How are you doing today, Scott?
I am doing quite well.
Actually, I haven't gotten to talk to you a whole lot today, so I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, things are fine.
We have a lot to go over today. We have, I think, a pretty big topic of sorts.
Yeah, this is going to be our first delve into Captain America, at least by himself. I know we've touched on him in some of our Avengers discussions, but this is our first dive into his solo adventures, although also this is in the stories that we're going to talk about today are right in the middle of the Captain America and the Falcon era, when the two of them were both on the title of the book. So
yeah, it's 1975. And then the big thing is that Kirby's back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of was the one, I guess, that came up with this topic, right? And what I did was I honestly was just looking for a story arc that we might enjoy, that would be kind of fun, and I didn't know much about this. I did not know anything about this story arc, except people might actually go, yeah, you still don't know anything about this story arc, but I didn't know anything about it prior to this, and it was not what I thought I was going to read.
I didn't know anything about it either, other than it existed, because I've heard references to it in the past of, here's this particular saga or this particular event, and I did not know didn't know what to expect. And it turned out to be a pretty wild roller coaster ride.
Yeah, and when we're done, maybe I will have a fixed idea about how I feel about everything. And just to let the cat out of the bag, it's issues 192 to 200, whole 7 or 8 issues that we had to read there, and it's the Madbomb saga, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
What did you think? Right off the bat, it's Kirby, Madbomb. It can destroy the world. Yeah.
Which makes you think, nuclear weapon or space ray gun or something to that effect, but it's not that at all.
No, it's just an actual psychic bomb of sorts that that makes people insane.
Yeah,
or angry, or
so right out of the gate, your expectations shift a little bit.
And yeah, it's very Kirby right off the bat, right?
It is. It starts right in, and with lots of action and lots of big splash pages. I think Kirby, something about this particular storyline is when Kirby came back to Captain America, they basically gave him the free reins, because he is writing, he is drawing.
That's right.
And he is also the final editor of this.
He is an auteur of comic books at this point, right?
Yeah, it is a pure Kirby product.
I think he stapled the books together himself,
he
too.
He may very well have, yes.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see that. Not surprised, like he's earned it.
Yeah.
It's matter of fact, on the cover page, King Kirby is back and greater than ever. I mean, they're excited that he's back, right?
Well, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, my timelines get a little messed up, but this was after he had defected to DC for a while, correct?
Yeah.
And was this the first work that he did back at Marvel when he...
I'm going to say possibly.
I wonder...
possibly.
I wonder if this was the carrot they dangled in front of him to say, hey, if you come back now, we'll just give you Cap and you can do whatever you want.
Well, matter of fact, I don't know much about Kirby and his return, but I did have to look, because I was telling you, you need to read the Eternals. And it looks like when he came back, and this is not all in the same year, but I feel like this has to have been in the deal. He returns to Captain America, which he helped create. He starts Black Panther in the next year. Well, not next year, in a couple of years, in '77. He does Machine Man a year after that, which, are you familiar with Machine Man?
Yes, but I had no idea that Kirby had anything to do with it.
Oh, yeah. It's all Kirby, man.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, very. As a matter of fact, I want to say the whole thing. The Eternals, which he would do around the time that he's ending this run, even though he stays with Captain America after this, but I didn't check that out. I didn't see how much longer he stayed.
Right.
I just read our issues and was done with it. And then, oh my gosh, if I ever knew about this, it was the biggest find of my life. Just like 2 hours ago. Devil Dinosaur.
Was that at the end of this era as well?
It was in 1978.
I didn't realize that was that early, but yes, I remember.
Oh my gosh,
Dinosaur.
I'm so excited about Devil Dinosaur. It has like a Chaka kind of character.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? From Land of the Lost.
I did not read very many of them, but I'm very familiar with it.
I should say a Chaka-looking guy. I think he talks. Yeah.
I remember seeing them on the stands, and I believe it was actually pretty heavily advertised as well in-house in some of the Marvel comics, and of course, Devil Dinosaur does appear in the Godzilla comic, which will come a bit later.
Okay.
Well,
anyway,
of
I'm
course.
actually really excited about it. That's not my cup of tea kind of thing, though, but it just looks so awesome. I didn't read a single word of it, but just kind of thumbed through some of the pages, and man, it's really cool looking.
I didn't realize that those titles had come in kind of that rapid succession.
Yeah. What I'm looking at is, like 70, basically 75 to 81.
Wow, that's a lot of new product.
Well, 81 is Machine Man. It's around. And you know what? If I didn't know this was Kirby, and I thought, oh, an artist, this is some artist's work. Tell me what you think of him. It would be kind of odd because none of them last. They all, except Captain America, continues, but without him. A couple of them last for 19 issues. One is 9. One is 15.
Yeah.
They don't last.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Like, really, Kirby? It didn't take?
I wonder if maybe they just didn't fit in that era, when we're heading into the biggest portion, some of the biggest eras of the Bronze Age. Some of these little side titles maybe just didn't have the staying power.
My opinion from this morning about Kirby's work today is possibly altering by the end of the day. I was kind of in a negative place a little bit today, and then I talked with you. I was a little negative about the issues we're reading today. And you being positive like you are, it kind of centered me a little bit, and I think I'm thinking about them differently now. So we'll see. But you know what? One of the points I wanted to make, why I brought all of that up is I think in each one of those, Kirby is doing it all. Yeah. At least in the beginning. I don't think no one's writing for him. He's editing for himself and so on and so forth. So he's doing it all. And so what kind of deal did he get to come back to Marvel?
Creative, if he, a lot of times we have talked about how the Marvel method, sometimes the artists didn't feel like they were getting the creative control or the credit for the creations that they were working with, and maybe top to bottom creative control was one of those things. It's like, I'll come back and I'll do however many books you want to, but I'm going to write them and I'm going to draw them and I'm going to edit them, and maybe that wasn't the best idea in the world given some of those issue counts. I don't know. Yeah,
and also, can you follow Kirby with some of these things? I think you can, but it would be kind of rough. And I don't mean because Kirby's so good, but Kirby's so Kirby that I'm not sure who's thinking like this at this time, right? Like you would have to take a magazine into a very different direction, I think. I just can't imagine, from what little I looked at Devil Dinosaur, that this can get picked up by Chris Claremont or something.
Someone else is going to have a hard time picking up the ball and running with it.
The only reason I can kind of imagine it is because Byrne will pick up Captain America not too many years after the Captain Americas that we're reading today, and it's great. Yeah, I don't even know where I was going with any of that.
And I've got one little side note that I want to throw in here. I was always familiar with the term Madbomb and the cover of this comic book, because when I was in grade school, the Meade Stationery Company released a line of folders and notebooks and 3-ring binders and all that sort of thing, everything you'd ever need for school, that all had Marvel Comics covers on them. And I believe they had one for all of the main titles. There was a Spider-Man one, a Hulk one, a Fantastic Four one. The one that they chose for Captain America was 193, which is him charging out of the frame in classic Kirby fashion with the Madbomb, it can destroy the world. And I had probably all of those folders at one time or another. And I always remembered that, because even though I didn't read Captain America at that point in my life, I was seeing Cap in the Avengers a lot. Never picked up the solo book, but that cover was firmly implanted in my brain, along with the word Madbomb. So when you said it, said, hey, let's read the Cap Madbomb saga, it's just like, hey, I remember that folder. So now I'm going to finally find out what it's all about.
Yeah, that's too cool. Man, young people, did they even know what Meade means? That was just...
I may have just dated myself there. I don't even know if that company is still around, but it was a large company at the time that made notebooks, stationery.
So every fall...
I think, did Meade come up with the Trapper?
I would think.
The Trapper and the Trapper Keeper, yeah.
I never had that fancy stuff.
I'm dating myself now. Well,
I wasn't a good enough student to deserve things like that.
When I was a little kid, the only thing I enjoyed about going back to school was that I'd get to go to the store and get all the new notepads and pencils and a little box with the rulers and erasers and all that, which I just absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And of course, then when I had all that cool stuff, I had to take it to school, which was kind of anticlimactic.
It kind of was, actually. You just reminded me that one of the reasons why you got all this cool stuff is because it sounds like to me that you had the coolest mom ever, ever. Scott was telling me today that just how she was not into comic books per se, but she identified with your interest and whatnot, right? Like the monster movies and all that jazz.
Mom was always she liked the monster movies and the sci-fi films and anything kind of fantastic. She didn't read comics, at least not that I was aware of, certainly when she was younger, but I think at that point, anything that kept me reading was something that she was going to support. So if I was reading any kind of books, be it comics, magazines, as long as I was reading, she was happy with that.
Well, as long as you're also reading anything that had the Beast in it, apparently, with your great vocabulary and everything, right?
Yeah. Sometimes people ask me when I was a kid, where I would learn and where did you hear these words? And it's like, well, comic books.
Yeah. Well, and that was brought up today. I just now remembered why, because I asked you if you were going to go see the Thunderbolts movie, and you are, and you're going to take your mom.
Yeah, she's even though she didn't read any of the books, big fan of the movies.
Crazy.
So with Mother's Day coming up, one of her favorite things to do is go to the movies. So we'll take her out to lunch, go see the Thunderbolts, and take it from there.
That's too cute.
And then with Fantastic Four and Superman coming out later this summer,
That's right.
I'm sure we'll have plenty more opportunities. It was kind of a drought there for a little while when Marvel dialed back their production on the films a little bit, but it sounds like
sad. I'm not even aware that they really did.
They're going to hit the ground running this summer anyway, so should be fun.
I didn't even know Thunderbolts was coming out. I had no idea till even like a week ago today. Maybe I knew. I don't know how it just snuck up on me or how I didn't hear of this, but you would think having a Marvel comic podcast I would be semi-aware of these things, but apparently that's not enough. So back to Captain America. I don't know where we left off or how we need to jump into it.
Well, we'd kind of set the stage. We'd set the dates. We set the issue numbers. We'd noted that Kirby was large and in charge on this one, so sink or swim, it's all Jack.
Yeah.
And I suppose at this point we could just dive right into the plot. Although, buckle up, people, this is a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, you know what though? It is a roller coaster ride, and it's big, and it's explosions and people punching and all sorts of things. It's just every panel is like that in some way. Not really, literally every panel, but a lot of them. It feels that way.
This story, for spanning that many issues, covers just about everything that you can think of.
Yeah, and it does start out with, for some unknown reason, I guess it's New York City, is starting to, everyone's kind of losing their mind. It actually looks like New York City is just burning to the ground. And this is never mentioned again, I don't think.
I don't.
Yeah, the crew came in and cleaned the whole thing up later on. Captain America finds him in this situation where everyone's losing their mind, and he discovers what it is. Somehow he just happens to see this small, it's referred to as a bomb.
Yeah. Well, he and Sam are both under the effects of it.
Oh, that's right.
And in fact, it starts off with them having an arm wrestling contest, which I think is probably going to be pretty one-sided, but here we go. But yeah,
it's not even
they're
fair.
in the middle of an arm wrestling contest, and suddenly they get incredibly and violently angry, and they start fighting with themselves, but then they realize that so is everyone else out in the streets. And I'm guessing maybe just because of the super soldier formula or Cap's, incredible force of will, for the last few moments, because they're down in the streets fighting as well, he sees this thing and he realizes in the back of his mind that something is not right. That doesn't belong here, and he smashes it. And when he does, everybody comes back to their senses, and that's essentially the term for it is the Madbomb.
Yeah.
And it uses these sound waves or some kind of hypersonic noise or something, and it just drives everyone nuts and makes them completely just violent. I mean, just burning like you said, burning the whole place down.
The machine that he finds it's such a Kirby
it is
invention, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like an artificial brain in a box with, if you pictured like what the Celestials look like with the circles and the interconnecting dots, it's a very, very Kirby-esque machine.
And then SHIELD is come up, and they're kind of recruiting both Sam and Steve to...
Yeah, right after he smashes the thing, a SHIELD agent kind of just basically comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, it's another one of those, essentially. We've seen these before, and we're going to have to take you in, and we're going to have to debrief you on this, and someone's going to have to give you the full story.
And who is that person that has to give them the full story? This is so bad. This is when I think I'm like, this isn't what I want to read.
Well, remember when I said buckle up, kids? They go to a secret meeting, and they think they're being escorted to a meeting. But when they come into this place, suddenly they're attacked, and they have to basically run this gauntlet of traps and things like this and fight off a bunch of men, essentially, for some strange reason, to prove that they're really Captain America and the Falcon.
They never explain why that is.
No, and I don't know why that would have been an issue, but once they pass all the tests and they prove who they really are, the person giving the debriefing is none other than Henry Kissinger.
And it's like a full page, too. Like a full page splash with Henry Kissinger looking at his watch or something. Oh, my God. It's just so crazy.
And honestly, there has to be a reason, and maybe not being as aware of current events at this exact time as I should be, it escapes me, but that could have been... It could just as easily have been Nick Fury. It could have been just some scientist or some military guy. Tell me, it wouldn't have been
better if it was just Nick Fury.
Yeah, because, I mean, Henry, correct me if I'm wrong, but Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State?
Yeah.
Okay, so why he's giving a briefing to superheroes about these devices is just... It seems a bit weird.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't mind these little, what do you call them? These little
Cameos?
Cameos,
A
thank
cameo?
you. I don't really mind them that much, but this was too much for me, really.
It seems a little on the nose, doesn't it?
And he's also a controversial figure. This isn't the most patriotic person in the world necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that have every reason in the world to dislike him quite a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, odd choice.
Yeah.
I don't know what's inspiring Kirby to do this. And there was no one at Marvel to stop him because
No, not this time. Like I said, this is all Jack.
Yeah, it goes on for like 3 full pages or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And 4.
But but in this meeting, they recount that this device that Cap smashed in New York is not the first one that they've seen, and that the prior ones were smaller. One was tiny little things.
The peanut.
Yeah, the peanut, and then there was a one that did like some small town somewhere. But the trend is
the dumpling. The next one's called the dumpling. I wrote these down.
Yeah.
You've got the peanut, dumpling, and Big Daddy.
Yeah. Well, and they've been progressively getting larger, been progressively affecting more people, and the one that their spies have found out about is essentially, like you just mentioned, the Big Daddy, and they estimate that one of the size because one of their spies found a photograph of it, and apparently he expired, but they found this photo on him, and they estimate that as big as it is, instead of just doing a city or even a portion of a city, that this thing could cover the entire United States, if not most of the world, and that they're going to have to figure out a way to stop it. And now that they've got this suspicion and that they've got this evidence that there's a bigger one out there and one that could be a potentially apocalyptic event, they start doing some tests on Sam and Steve and essentially find a way, they believe, to immunize them to the effects of this device.
Right.
Because they're going to send them on this mission. Your mission is to discover this, find this device, and destroy it, but knowing that there could be smaller ones used as defenses and that sort of thing. So they do some super secret science stuff, and they have, and I'll say it properly this time, lots of Kirby crackle.
Matter of fact, go ahead.
No, lots of Kirby crackle, helmets, just ray guns and all that sort of stuff. And by the end of the test, they say, well, we don't know for sure, but you should be immune to this now.
Yeah, right. It's really cute. On the bottom left panel of one of the pages, they actually have the word crackle taking place, and it's all Kirby crackle.
I missed that.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
I cut it out, and I might put it on our Blue Sky account. I don't know if that's humorous to people or not, but I thought it was really cute. But yeah, it's so Silver Age, right? Like the explanations for things, what they're doing. There's just barely rhyme or reason to it.
I know. It just and as I'm reading through this, to me, I'm thinking, man, this is classic Silver Age stuff.
It is.
And I can't help but wonder if after the prior run, which I believe was Steve Englehart.
It is.
In Captain America.
Not exactly before, but yes, the prior good stuff was certainly Englehart.
And that had a lot of social commentary,
Yeah.
a lot of some heavier topics. And I think at this point, Jack came back and said, you know what? Let's go back to the good old days where if the mad scientist shoots you with a ray gun, I can make it say it did anything under the sun to you. In this case, it just happens to be immunity to the Madbomb.
Do you know what? I'm going to tell you how correct you are in that. Like, that was the switch I had today, right there.
Mm-hmm.
That I was kind of disappointed, I think, because I am surprisingly not knowledgeable about Captain America. I thought I knew more than I did. This has taught me I don't. But like you said, the Englehart, somewhat sophisticated writing, so to speak, right? Like, we're learning who Steve Rogers is as a person. There's this whole thing he goes through where he's losing his, not his patriotism, but he's getting somewhat cynical about things. Won't go into that story, but
right.
All this has happened.
A little disenfranchised.
Right. And, well, he changes he even has a new character, and he becomes Nomad and all this. Pretty big story, pretty big switch in personality. You're right. Kirby just comes in and says, I'm going the other direction. I'm Kirby. I can do whatever I want.
Going to hit the big red reset button.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's, 1940 again.
Yeah. And I don't mean it like in a jerk way. I just think he's like, I'm just going to write what I want. Yeah. And that's all there is to it. And he plows through it. And that's when I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy these stories. I'm going to have fun. Yeah. Yep. So I have a far less negative view of it than I did at 9 a.m. this morning. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Scott. Then you get to find out, they kind of cut to who's actually doing all this kind of stuff. You get a bit of a clue to all of what's going down, right?
Yes, and talk about whiplash.
Yeah.
It's when you expect to finally get the reveal of the bad guy, it's not the Red Skull, it's not Hydra, it's not AIM or any of these
none typical... None of the good ones.
No, none of the ones that you would expect to be, and oh boy, this is going to be a big story. It turns out it's a bunch of guys standing around in wigs and clothing from the time of the American Revolution. And these guys, and he immediately goes on this diatribe of how with the Madbomb, they're going to throw the country into chaos, and then their troops, which are loyal to them, are going to mop up, and they're going to establish a new American order, if not world order, in essentially bringing back the English aristocracy of predating the Revolutionary War. In fact, at some point, and I don't know if it's exactly here or not, they simply say, we're going to rip up the Constitution and throw it away and get back to the way things ought to be.
Yeah, we're the elite rules.
We're the elite rules, and they even have a name for themselves. The Royalist Forces of America is their moniker.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, and I don't know if necessarily that refers to their soldiers who wear these strange green jumpsuits with like pointed gold bullet heads.
I did like that. I won't lie. I liked it.
Yeah,
but it's ridiculous.
It's not to be confused with any other agency, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The short term is they refer to themselves as the elite.
Yeah.
And they're going to bring back the aristocracy where the ruling class is granted power by birthright and everyone else just basically, works to better their lives.
Yeah, it's an extreme class system is going to be put in place, right? And I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. I think he is a one-off. I don't think this guy comes back. I'm not sure about that, but it's the guy in charge. How would you pronounce?
William?
Yeah.
In my mind, I say Towery.
Okay.
Tory,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, okay. And what was I going to say about him? At a point. Oh, he is connected to Steve Rogers in some odd way, right? The connection is that Steve Rogers' ancestor and this Tory's ancestor both had a duel, and Rogers' ancestor won the duel, and Tory's ancestor was killed.
Yes, and of course, Steve's ancestor was, a patriot, fighting for the revolution, and Towery's ancestor was considered a turncoat because he was going to warn the British about some impending attack or something like that. Was intercepted by Steve's ancestor. They had a duel, and Towery's ancestor did not win.
He knows that Steve Rogers is alive, but he is this weakling that never fought in World War II and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Right. Ruling class, not going to get their hands dirty with that sort of thing.
Yeah. Talking about the Falcon, we haven't really touched on him. I don't know much about the Falcon. I'm not a fan at this moment, but that's only because I think he has a really lame origin story. It's just not lame. It's just not very interesting. Are you aware of it?
I am not. And I have to confess, I don't know a lot about the Falcon either. I learned a lot in reading some of these stories and a few that immediately preceded it. But to me, since I didn't read this book when it was coming out, to me, basically, Falcon was always Cap's sidekick.
Yeah, I actually thought that for a long
Captain
time.
America
Right?
and the Falcon, and honestly, that's kind of all I knew.
Yeah. I'm willing, I sense that I'm going to kind of like him as we're moving forward, because already in this issue, he has gotten rid of a couple of things that it's why I didn't like him. One, he has no actual superpowers. Now, that's actually pretty cool. There's no problem with people having no superpowers. But the thing that he does well is he has a Falcon. I just don't care for that. That is the worst superpower you could possibly have. And his fighting ability, I could, by the way, I will preface, I could be absolutely wrong about all of this, but it's my understanding that his fighting ability completely comes from Steve Rogers training him. And that's it. That's his superpower. He can't fly, he can't do any of these things.
Well, his suit
Well, now he can.
kind of lets him fly or glide or
I don't know
something
when that
to that
happened.
effect.
Yeah.
I believe, interestingly enough, I believe the Black Panther gave him that suit.
I think that too.
Yeah.
It
And
has
I don't
to
know
be.
where somewhere in reading through
Yeah.
this I saw that little bit of nugget, but yeah, Falcon is more of what we would refer to as kind of a street level fighter.
Yeah.
He's just like Daredevil or other characters that have an exceptional skill set but no real superpowers to speak of.
Now, exactly. So him being able to fly and he doesn't seem to have that Falcon with him anymore. He's a lot more appealing to me. Like, I don't know why, but I needed something. He just needed to, I don't know. It just seemed, like you said, he's beyond Street Fighter stuff. He's helping to save the world today.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to have the skill sets to actually do it. He's pulling it off in the comic.
Yeah.
You pointed this out. Him and Cap are having an arm wrestling competition. He's not going to beat Captain America. He has the super serum.
Not in any way that I could fathom or wrap my brain around.
Yeah, unless something has happened, which is very likely. And it only takes one issue to do this, but it's very likely since I haven't read most of the Captain Americas up to this point. But anyway,
and I will concede that point too. I am not well versed in the Falcon at all.
But I will say the one thing I really do like about him in this comic is he has more personality than Steve Rogers does. There's character to him. There's an internal not an internal struggle. It's very of the times, and he makes a lot of comments about being an African American in the United States and whatnot, which is somewhat pertinent to the story. Not entirely, but it's there. And there's
Kirby, he touches on it and he addresses it, or addresses isn't really the right word. He touches on it so as, I think, not to say that it's been glossed over or ignored completely, but it's not really addressed in any deep, meaningful fashion. Because while Steve is relating this story to Sam about his ancestor and what they did during the Revolution and that sort of thing, and Sam's attitude is, well, that's great. Your family owned a big farm. My family was probably singing songs and working on it, and it kind of doesn't go beyond that. And in fact, Steve says, well, these journals from my ancestor don't mention any of that, but I can neither prove nor disprove it, so we'll just kind of have to put a pin in that and let it go. And the whole conversation takes place over the course of just a couple panels, and then it's right back into the action again. So where some of the prior writers were delving very heavily into cultural and societal issues, I think Kirby knew that he couldn't just completely blow it off, because at the time of the American Revolution, that was very much a thing, and it couldn't be glossed over completely. But by the same token, we're not going to turn this into a lecture about.
Well, he has a story to tell, and he's trying to tell it, right?
Yes.
I think we I don't know if this is apparent at this point in time when we're reading this comic. Sometimes I have to remember, oh yeah, this was just coming out once a month, and I have to pace myself like this, right? So this is 9 issues before the bicentennial 200th edition. So that's what we're spending almost an entire year, not quite, but many months before we hit that 200th issue,
conclusion,
which will be the conclusion to this Madbomb story.
Right.
And as we're approaching 1976 and we're getting ready to celebrate the bicentennial, of course that issue has to be raised and has to be discussed, right? This is in the news where not everybody is completely celebrating the 200th anniversary. Like, it's not as pure as one might think, right?
Right.
So this is just that.
Right. And the topic is broached a little bit later in the story. Again, not in a really deep, meaningful way, but it doesn't go completely away after this. I think Kirby's goal was just to tell a really good, wholesome, patriotic story with a character that in his eye was probably still at that time the embodiment of everything that was good about America. So,
but he's not going to sit and celebrate. Matter of fact, this whole run, you could say it is a celebration in a sense, and it is being very patriotic, but let's not forget that we don't have room for improvement.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, not everything's perfect. And,
yes.
And that's not that that's okay, but that's the way it is.
We've come a long way, but there's still more work to do.
Right.
Yeah. And they touch on that from time to time.
Yeah.
And almost exclusively through the character of Sam.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Steve Rogers, right off the bat, maybe I'll think of something as we're moving along, but man, I just don't see much development with Steve Rogers at all, or he's not even being Captain America. I'm not sure. We'll talk as we move forward. Yeah. It's hard for me to describe what I have a problem with this character.
He is very much, his character at this point is pretty much just cast. He behaves in the way Kirby expects him to behave, which is, mission, duty, country, protecting, following orders, that sort of thing. Yeah, not a lot of, he doesn't get very far out of his comfort zone at any point in this story.
No, and man, I want to be careful about saying I don't like Steve Rogers in this whole run. That's too extreme. But there are just these moments, and maybe I'll point them out, where he's just sort of, I don't know, he's kind of it's not a bully or anything, but like there's this one panel where he just punches this guy's shield like off of his face, and it looks like it all but killed him. He's like, "You're in my vision, my way of sight," or something like that. Who is saying this? Captain America doesn't just punch somebody's head off and then go, "I can't see because of your big dumb head." And it's so weird to have Steve Rogers say something and do something like that. We had a little bit of a break there, and I thought you made a really good point. I'm going to kind of ask you to repeat that, because I think it was a good insight into why Cap is being written this way. Well,
we had mentioned that this particular iteration of Cap didn't seem very nuanced. He's just kind of has a one-note mindset, and it occurred to me that Kirby, having been one of the original creators of Captain America, going all the way back to the Golden Age, may be bringing a bit of a different perspective to the character, or maybe in his mind he's returning him to his roots, where Captain America's role was to go charging in with the troops and punching Nazis and get in on the mission and have the action, and we'll save all the flowery speeches and introspection for some other day, because we've got a bomb to find.
Right. And I just thought that was an excellent point, and I think you're spot on right about that. That just completely rings true to me, that he's just channeling the Captain America from back in the day.
It would be, well, and as a point of comparison, maybe after we've gone over this, I've actually, and this may be ding my cred a little bit, but I have never actually read any of the Golden Age Captain America comics.
No, I haven't either, yeah.
And it might be interesting to go back and reread some of those and see if it kind of lines up with this. because we thought at the time Kirby's channeling the Silver Age, maybe he's channeling the Golden Age.
Oh yeah, right.
But just framing it in, late Silver, early Bronze Age sensibilities.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a panel where, I don't know if this really applies entirely, but he just says, somehow the Nazi ghost never seems to die within man. It marches with insane pride, respecting nothing, taking everything, and ignoring the pain of others. He's just really thinking a lot about fascism and just fighting fascists. And so I think you're right about this.
Yeah, that's a direct callback to Golden Age mission statement.
And this is like someone has taken the camera and zoomed right into Cap's face, too. So this is what Cap is thinking at this time. Yeah, he's just on a mission to kill fascism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Mystery solved. Thanks, Scott.
Oh, that's
a
okay.
wrap. Whatever mystery that is. Yeah.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
There is.
We haven't
more.
even gotten to roller derby yet.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. You know what? Yeah, Do you know what? One second before we get to roller derby, we did kind of pass over a character though. I think this is before roller derby, where we have Cheer Chadwick.
Actually, she comes in just ahead.
Before.
Yeah, just before that, because they get a tip from a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who has gone missing of what they think is a secret base out in the western desert of the United States.
Right.
And so that's where Cap and Sam are headed. They think that this could be the base. This could be where the Madbomb is hidden. And so they're flying out there in a S.H.I.E.L.D. plane. As they get to the location, suddenly their plane is attacked, and you expect, if they're shooting at us, or it's another plane or some superpowered baddie, but in fact it's just a giant, and I think he throws a rock at them.
And not even a real rock.
Yeah.
I don't think.
The whole terrain surrounding this base is fake. It's been disguised to look natural, but it's not. And their plane is knocked down by an honest-to-gosh giant, like right out of Harry Potter. And when the plane goes down, the army of the elite comes streaming out and gets the drop on Sam and Cap and drags them into their secret hideout. And that's where we are introduced to this new character. There's a lot going on in this base. They have a lot of people here that are indoctrinated into this movement. They have an army that they have been assembling, but they're also basically making these giants with some kind of a mind wave gadget to turn them into basically cheap, exploitable labor.
Right. They're going to be the bottom of the heap of everybody, right?
Yes, they're just going to be this. I believe they actually use the phrase "weak minds but strong backs." And in this base as well, they have these. The title of the issue is actually "It's 1984."
Yeah.
And this group is very much painted in the light of the government of the novel 1984, and it right down to the point of a large face on a view screen spouting the mantra of this organization and offering up what they called freedom freaks in effigy, in something that I could only equate to 2 minutes hate if you've read the book. So you've got a Big Brother analogy, you've got a 2 minutes hate analogy, and it just goes to show you that this is kind of a cult, and I don't think that a lot of these people realize that the ruling class, people like Tory, who are planning on being the elites, they need supporters, but they don't want equals. So I think that they have been distracted by a lot of this with what I could only describe as gladiatorial games of a type, which in this particular comic turns out to be something kind of like a cross between Rollerball, if you've seen that movie, and maybe The Hunger Games, because we're on skateboards and we're on a track and we're zooming around fighting like mad, and the last man standing gets a pot of gold.
Literally a pot of gold, which is being protected by a little fence. Yeah, no one will get to it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking literally like Leprechaun at the end of the rainbow sitting on a pot of gold. And it's
And they keep mentioning this pot of gold. I mean...
And everyone is so astonished that neither Steve nor Sam care about this at all.
Yeah. Already they've met this cheer, Chadwick, and she's sponsored them to be in this roller derby-ish kind of a thing.
Yes, and I accidentally jumped over that. But yes, you're exactly right. When they are in the cell while they're waiting for whomever to decide what to do with them, yeah, she shows up. And she is a very strange character.
I don't understand her at all.
She has almost a childlike mannerism.
I don't want to disparage anybody, but she seems like she's like the most superficial person, like some of the influencers you might see who are just very much into their own looks, and they cannot think beyond their own desires or whatever, their immediate needs.
Yes.
She just seems like somebody who she has not had her own thought her whole life. She just wants to be comfortable, and she enjoys lording it over other people.
Well, and through the conversations that she has, she basically says, well, my daddy runs this place.
Yes.
So she's obviously led a sheltered and privileged existence, and as such just seems to be almost kind of juvenile.
Yeah,
and
kind of
I'm just here.
Paris Hilton kind of a person.
Yeah,
maybe.
She doesn't seem to be particularly enthused with the movement. It's just kind of, this is my life and this is what I do, and I can tell all of you to do whatever I want you to do because my dad's in running this place.
Matter of fact, she hits a guy just to prove that point, right?
Yeah. But her bright idea is to put Cap and Sam into this rollerball duel. And, of course, it turns out about like you expect. They go in, and Sam and Steve, it's kind of touch and go there for a while, but eventually they prevail and beat everybody. And when they're the last one standing, they're like, we don't want this pot of gold. And they start addressing the crowd. It's like, this is not a proper movement, and you people are not going to come out on top in this. And, we're just here to stop. Where is the bomb? We're here to stop this. And it just kind of falls on deaf ears, really.
Yeah, and what Tory, that's what we're going to call him, I guess.
Yeah.
What he wants, and then when you jump to what's happening here, this 1984 issue, I don't really see the lineup between the two per se. I guess it kind of does fold in a little bit, but it's almost like he has written a story, like he's written two different stories, and then, it's just a different issue. Like he hasn't changed his mind about what he's doing, but there's a bit of a jump or something. There's not a connect. I'm not feeling it's the same movement.
He is borrowing heavily from Orwell and using these tools as a kind of a propaganda / brainwashing / almost cult-like. Because Tory knows if he's going to sway people to his side, if he's going to get them to believe in his cause, he needs to make them think that there's something that they stand to gain by it, and an enemy that needs to be taken out. In this case, anyone who stands behind the democracy of the United States, who stands behind the Constitution and the rights of individuals, is a freedom freak. And that flies directly in the face of this aristocracy that they seek to establish. But in order to convince people to flock to his cause, he is using these kind of like almost psychological reinforcement. If you're constantly being told, this is our goal, this is what we stand against, this is what's going to, allow us to excel and get the things that we want, it keeps them placated. So kind of like mass brainwashing, if you want to call it that.
This issue, maybe we've already known this guy, Argyle Fist, General Argyle Fist.
What a name!
I had to Google that, and I was at work when I Googled it, and I was a little bit scared about what was going to pop up when safe was not on. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And luckily, nothing bad. I was a little surprised.
Yeah. Well, and that's good that you bring him up, because while the roller derby is happening, SHIELD and the Army have gotten a bead on the location of this base. So while Sam and Cap are fighting inside, the Army has broken through and is coming through from the outside. So in the end, it kind of ends up being a rout, because the Army is in the base. Sam and Cap have got everybody off of kilter. So it leads to the rout of this base. And the problem, what you in itself you would think would be a victory, but the unfortunate plot development is that Big Daddy, the Madbomb, that if you, in case we've forgotten what the mission was.
Right. It's so important to remember.
Yeah.
Because this is another month that we've gone into.
And where we've complete. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Madbomb, Big Daddy, was in fact assembled there, but has been moved to another location. So even though they've taken this base out, the Madbomb, we still don't know where it is.
Right,
it's still out there.
Exactly.
Every issue, if not having a 2-page spread of a giant fight scene, at least has some full page that are just quintessential Captain America. I mean, he's standing there, he's pointing forward with the shield in the air, and the soldiers are rushing in behind him, and it is just so classic Captain America and classic Kirby that you could just almost take those pages out and just pin them up on your wall and make little posters out of them.
Who would ever do that, Scott? Who would ever do that?
Well,
Scott
I don't
confessed
know.
to me that he did this as a child.
I was known to do that from time to time, yes.
I don't think it's bad. They were your comics. You do what you want. You have a good time with them, right?
Well, at that time, they were still kind of considered just disposable entertainment.
Let's all face it. Comics were printed on some of the worst paper known to man. The local newspaper was the only worse paper I personally knew of than comic paper. Am I right?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. So they didn't exactly scream collectible. Right?
No, and in that day and age, nobody said that even these B-grade issues are going to be worth $40 or $50 a piece. I'm going to have it graded and slabbed in a plastic seal where it'll never be touched by human hands again.
Matter of fact, I kind of suspect even when Marvel would say, hey, this is going to be a collector's item, what they meant was you could probably trade 10 Captain Americas for this one Captain America. That kind of value, not a monetary value.
Well, and while we're making confessions, I will also confess that sometimes I actually clipped out the Marvel value stamps.
We talked about that. Oh, that is too funny to me.
Yeah. So,
and then tell me if I'm jumping too fast, but then we get to issue 198. Is that jumping too hard? This is when we get to Cap's love story.
Okay, nope, because I was literally just waiting to say, well, now that we're done with roller derby, what do you think we should do next?
Okay, this is the one time I'll not be too polite about. Not polite. This is the one time I might be a little bit more negative. I'm not a fan of this one issue. I personally would even been mad had I bought it. And I felt like you're looking at me like you want to jump in.
Oh, no. It is truly a shift of gears without the courtesy of using a clutch.
Yeah, like all of a sudden the story just turns to the gentleman who's actually invented the Madbomb. He's not being blackmailed, I don't believe, but he's been offered a good job. He kind of got pulled into this organization. Now he's in the thick of it, right? And he made this device for him. Well, one of the reasons why he fell into this organization was because he needed the money for his daughter, who was terminally ill, I suppose.
If not terminally ill, severely ill.
And so she's struggling, and she has no life. She just lays in bed all the time, 24/7, 365. And she's in this compound or in this house, and Captain America has infiltrated it in the middle of the night.
Yes, because he's looking for the scientist who is reported to have been there on numerous occasions. And when he finds this young woman, he's kind of surprised and a bit taken aback because he wasn't expecting to find her there. Nobody really knew that she was there. They were expecting to sneak in and find a secret lab or some sort of thing. But this scientist is not there at the moment, but they know that he comes there regularly, and they put two and two together, and it's because he's coming to visit his daughter.
Right, exactly. And
he even claims, he reveals later, that this device that he built didn't really start out to be this, but that it was another case of a scientist builds something that supposedly has better purposes, but it's been kind of corrupted and turned into the Madbomb.
You have some sympathy for this guy. You certainly have sympathy for the daughter. And he just walks into her room not knowing that she's there. She immediately just strikes up a friendship with him.
Yeah.
I was kind of taken aback by that. It's awkward, it's a whole page of them just chatting. I don't get what's happening.
Well, they seem to really hit it off, and they kind of have a deep conversation about the nature of things, and kind of really top level stuff. Kind of comes out of nowhere.
It does.
But through this, Steve kind of hatches a plan of that when the scientist comes back, they need to be ready for him and be kind of lay a trap. But since they want to take over this facility and he doesn't want her hurt, he kind of hatches this plan that, well, maybe for a special treat, we'll go for a walk on the beach. And the two of them meet on the beach, and she's wrapped up and cloaked up, presumably because she's cold or something. But while he has distracted her by getting her to come meet him on this beach, S.H.I.E.L.D. takes over the facility.
Right.
Because he doesn't want there to be any chance of her being hurt, because when S.H.I.E.L.D. takes this place to set their trap for the scientist when he comes back, bullets are going to fly. It could get a little hectic here. So he wants her completely out of the scene.
And he just shows up on a horse.
Right out of the cover of a romance novel.
He's riding to the edge of the ocean.
The surf and the wind and the hair.
Yeah,
and
he's not wearing a costume. He's just handsome Steve Rogers, with his blonde hair and everything. Yeah, and they're having a great time. And he really does seem sincerely taken with this young lady.
He does. I think he sees a depth and a maturity to her, and perhaps in contrast to the gal we met in the secret base, her maturity, he feels like she's kind of an old soul.
Yeah, because he is an old soul.
She's kind of carrying kind of the weight of the world, more so even than just her own illness, and that she actually still manages to have a positive attitude, and I think that really resonates with him. So he definitely he develops a soft spot for this girl.
Yeah, and I think if you take all that kind of goofiness and awkwardness about how the story is being told at this moment, it really is touching, because Steve, you kind of find out how lonely he really is.
Yeah.
And she, of course, is extremely lonely.
Yes.
And again, just like you just said, that he is an old soul, and he doesn't have anyone that really quite identifies with the world the way he does. And yet here's this deep, well-thought young lady. I don't know. It's really touching. You're glad they found each other.
Yeah.
That's probably the most character moving, like this is where Steve Rogers' character grew the most in all of these issues, in my opinion.
You know, you're absolutely right. Almost to the point where earlier we were talking about how Cap just kind of seems to be very one-dimensional through this story, and I had kind of lost sight of this little interlude, and it's almost enough to kind of make me want to retract my first statement just a little bit. This is a good moment for Steve Rogers rather than Captain America.
And if I reread it, maybe it would read a little bit better. But I think the reason why both of us, in a way, look over it is because it's just so clunky. It's a chunk. It just doesn't work. And I'm kind of like annoyed at this point, like with how weird they met, and I'm not really seeing why this is flowing this way. And there's so much time spent here, but not enough here.
Because for the way the cover sells it as being, a Captain America love story, even though they do really hit it off, the whole story revolves around really not much more than getting her out of the mansion so that they can lay a trap for her father when he comes back to see her again.
Very little action, and even the action isn't good action. It's them entering the house and kind of taking out these mob type characters.
Yeah.
And there's a cool one whole page dedicated to a moment like that.
Yeah.
Not enough for me to want to buy the comic that day, and then they're on the beach, and there's that.
I know where you're going with this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And they're right in the middle of this, they're gazing longingly into each other's eyes, and then out of nowhere, Steve gets hit in the head with some kind of beach ball or something.
Yeah.
And there's these thugs on the beach, and they've just kind of got a chip on their shoulder, and they want, hey, give us our ball back. And Steve's kind of like, well, what do you guys want? Yeah, here it is. But they end up basically kind of looking to be toughs, and I think they kind of start a fight and end up getting shown the error of their ways. Cap, I'm sure, with one hand tied behind his back, pretty much puts them all in their place.
Yeah, he picks up a boulder over his head to scare him off. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just, we don't want any part of that.
Well, he's like, hey, this guy's nuts. He must think he's Captain America.
When I read that, though, and this is going to be another short tangent, but I'll try to keep it concise. All I could think of when I saw that scene was the Charles Atlas ads that was in every comic book ever printed of the tough guy kicking the sand in the weakling's face, and he goes and gets his Charles Atlas catalog and turns the tables. But I thought this was kind of an odd, flip that on its head. And this could just be me reading into it, but they flip it on this head because the tough guys are going to try to kick sand in who they think the weakling's face is. And it turns out he's like
college boy.
Yeah. Turns out that they're going to, that it's a superhero, throwing boulders and that sort of thing. I got a real chuckle out of that. And
then there's this little odd moment, and I'll let it go. But they actually say, like, who do you think, you're Captain America? And they run off, and she's like, and Steve Rogers says something, and she's like, is that your philosophy, Captain America? And he's like, what was it you said? Carol, surely you don't believe. Yeah, she believes that because you were just in her bedroom the night before in a costume and a shield. She would think that you're Captain America. I was surprised she didn't know who Captain America was right off when she first saw him.
Yeah.
So odd. So when you're reading things like this, you forget that you just had this touching moment between these two people. And sorry for the noise out there. This something's going on in town today. There's going to be extra traffic.
They're gearing up for a festival, so there's a lot of traffic.
Normally we try to stop talking, but I think we're just going to have to just get through it. Anyway.
But the plan, in the long term, though, the plan does work, because with a little bit of a false start there with a trap that they set for him, the scientist does in fact come back to the house. And when they get a hold of him, basically he flips on them. He flips on Towery, and he starts telling them about where the Madbomb is and how he's going to because Towery has threatened him and said, we're not going to support you anymore, and basically gives him reads him the riot act, and because of it, he just decides that, well, I'm done with these people. I'm not going to do this anymore. So when he goes back, it doesn't take much convincing, and he flips on them.
Yeah.
And so that's the big clue that they need to find the Big Daddy Madbomb and Towery himself and get the whole thing going. But hold that thought, because I have another question. We were talking about the girl. We were talking about Cheer Chadwick.
Right.
At the end of the battle where the SHIELD agents take over the base, and at the last second, Cheer and her father, she calls him Papa, escape in some kind of like secret.
Right. In a tunnel. They just take off.
Yeah, they've got a tunnel. Now, this is something that confuses me. At that point, did you think that her father, who is supposedly running all this, was someone different than Towery?
I thought we were going to be told who it is, so yes. I did think it would be a different person.
Because we never see her again after this.
I don't think she is.
She is not in the big finale. She never shows up again. Yet they show Papa from the back of his head, and he has this full head of jet black hair. They make a point to never show his face. He's very calm, he's very measured, he's very articulate, unlike Towery. So I really was led to believe that was a different character.
It is.
Okay.
This isn't going to be known immediately. This will all be, somebody will dredge this up in the future and make a story out of it. But you never see Cheer again. You don't know who her father. This is not resolved. I do not believe.
Right.
So you're
because they make it sound like Towery is running this whole operation, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it because there's this other figure. And if they're one and the same, that point was very, very.
They're not
only
one of
the most thinly thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we mentioned that because that was again, a big question that I had.
And I'm sure people are like pounding the table, how wrong we both have this. But I looked her up, and it looks like from the art that she's going to be brought up in the future. At some point, it's certainly not Kirby's art. It's not. I don't know how many more years we're going, but it seems like a long time. And then in the art I saw of who is going to be her father, does have jet black hair, and the art was modern, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, then that was a very vague point.
Yeah.
And honestly, I needed to jump back and ask that question before I forgot.
Again, another not disconcerting, another disjointed, awkward thing about this writing. Like they just leave, and that's that. Why are we not following this up in some way?
Well, and honestly, I thought that was going to be a build-up to the big finale, because we're homing it. We're on the home stretch now.
We are on the home stretch.
They know where the Madbomb is. They know where Towery's outfit is, and I'm thinking, okay, in the big finale's coming up. They're going to accomplish their mission, but at the last minute, you thought Towery was in charge, ha ha ha, but no, it's really me. And it was going to be, the Red Skull or some other vintage Captain America foe, or perhaps some other MCU foe who's, really the big bad behind the whole scheme. And that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And honestly, here's a little bit of a conceit on my part. As we move into the big finale, Sam and Cap split up. Sam is going after the bomb itself, which has been hidden in Philadelphia, which is with as much as they're trying to tie in with the bicentennial.
Right. Matter of fact, the last issue is the special bicentennial issue, right?
Yes, and it is Captain America 200.
yeah, and it is, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. They timed it all perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, yeah.
Well, they tie that into Philadelphia. Sam's mission is to find the bomb and destroy it. Cap's mission is to go to Towery's compound or mansion or estate or however you want to find it and basically shut them down and bring him in.
Right.
And you think because in my mind, oh boy, it's going to be the two of them together and they're going to go in guns blazing and just, a giant action fest. But honestly, the whole conclusion is a little anticlimactic. The story with Falcon finding and disabling the bomb by basically kind of overloading it to the point where it explodes has more action and suspense than Cap facing off against Towery.
No, I figured it's a really cool. It has like 9 panels on one page. It's pretty cool.
Where he's destroying the
where he's overloading the Madbomb.
But their mission succeeds. They find the Madbomb. They do destroy it. It's hidden in the top of a skyscraper in Philadelphia. And the big grudge match that you expect between Cap and Towery, where they're going to relive this old battle between their old ancestors, they finally come face to face, and Cap basically says, okay, let's do this. Let's have this duel. And they actually have pistols. They stand right face to face with each other, and they're literally pointing their guns right at each other's chest.
Point blank range.
Yeah, there's no missing, no paces involved, no turn and fire. We're just going to stare each other in the eye. And Cap is staring this man down and says, okay, here's your big chance. Are we going to do this now? And Towery basically blinks. He backs off. Whether he convinces himself that he's above this or that sort of thing, essentially there is no duel. There is no settling of the issue between them. But in destroying the Madbomb and capturing Towery and his cohorts, essentially this entire movement of his is put to an end.
Yeah.
And so that's the end. And Falcon calls Cap on the radio and says, how's it doing? How is it going?
How stands the nation?
And Cap signs off with saying, the nation still stands.
Yeah.
And that's basically the last panel of the story.
It was kind of a want a little bit, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I read the next couple of issues to see if there were any loose threads that they would tie up. And in the very next issue, they deal with the scientist, Mason Harding. Well, he still is going to jail, but they do say that his daughter is in a hospital or she's getting the best possible care, and that he doesn't have to worry about her. He is going to jail, but because he flipped on Towery, because he told them where the Madbomb was, because he told them where everything was hidden, he will be getting some leniency. He's still going to have to pay a price, but not as severely as the rest of the cohorts that were completely, all in.
Was the girl's name Carol? Was that right? Is she in the story at all? Did she come back?
I don't recall seeing her. I don't think that she was. And you may be right about her name. At the moment, I'm drawing a complete blank, but I think you may be right.
Do you have any other? You look like you have a point to make.
No. I was just thinking to kind of summarize a little bit that this story was, I think, supposed to be kind of a classic Captain America yarn, something meant to tie in with the bicentennial, Captain America 200 in the year of the bicentennial. And I think that they believed that they're who better to make this story, to put this story together than Jack Kirby himself. And I have to say that, story issues aside, it has its ups, it has its downs, it has some things that are kind of silly, but it is still quintessential Kirby Captain America. And if you like those things, even if you want to just leaf through the issues and just soak in that artwork, it's definitely worth it. I don't know that it's, the conclusion was a bit lackluster. This story, even though it's well known as part of Captain America's lore, doesn't really stack up against things like some of the other major storylines that have happened. But it's still, at its core, a lot of fun.
Yeah, matter of fact, I want to be careful about, for myself, giving a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of opinion about things.
Yeah.
I like to nitpick sometimes. It's just fun. Of course, we love these, and I'm glad that it's here and all that. It's just fun. It's fun reading the bad issues, right?
And it's one of those things.
Not that these are all
that
bad.
You'll just get a chuckle for how out of left field some of this stuff is. It's when you're going through these issues, you just think to yourself, wow, I didn't see that coming. How crazy is that? And then you just tear right into it because you want to see, how it's going. So don't expect the most profound comics that you'll ever read in your entire life. But if you just want a good romp, I recommend it heartily.
Yeah. I wish that I could just show a picture in a podcast, but you can't, obviously. So maybe I'll put it up on our Blue Sky account or something. But this is the kind of things. This is just an example of like what Kirby was doing that would just kind of boggle my mind a little bit. There's this one. So you can imagine a panel where Captain America's talking to this young lady, and I don't know what she said, but she said something to him, and he says, "It was the sound of war, the settling of differences in principle. That's why you must be placed out of harm's way." Then the next thing he basically says to her is, she's talking about her father and the how he's gone wrong, how he's gone down the wrong path. And he's like, "Good men often go wrong, but your dad's made the boo-boo of all time."
Yeah.
That's a line from Jack Kirby.
And that's not the only instance because words like boo-boo, calling characters dum-dum.
No, that's my other one, where the Falcon is like, he's screaming at somebody. He's like, "It hasn't happened yet, you scheming dum-dums." Oh, my gosh. Like, it just takes you out of the comic for a moment, right?
Yeah,
like,
I know. But honestly, sometimes when I think about that old Silver Age dialogue, it's not that far off the mark.
Oh, too fun. Yeah.
But yeah, it'll definitely give you a chuckle.
Yeah, I have others. I was just pulling them out. Like, it was just hilarious. So, yeah, if anything, just read this and just have those panels all by themselves. Like, it was just a complete set of art right there.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other points before we wrapped up on this story. There is a panel which I do think I will upload on Blue Sky that has to do with you, and I thought of you. It'll be in your honor.
Oh, no.
I'll tell you what it is. There's this military guy is throwing a smoke bomb through this window, and he's like, "This smoke grenade will change things. At least it will cough up some action. Couldn't help the pun, Cap." Which, by the way, we're making it through another episode of No Puns from Scott.
Give me a minute. It's not over just yet. No.
Yeah. So
it's not over till it's over.
Lots of fun panels. So Kirby delivers in that area.
Yeah, he really does.
And his machines. Just go look at the stuff for the machines alone. Like
the secret bases.
The Hound Hog or whatever it was that they were flying.
The planes and lots of great sonic gadgets. And it's,
Lots of good stuff. Okay, well, Scott and I, as always, we have our little powwow before we start wrapping things up. We haven't discussed whatsoever about what we're going to do next week.
No, not yet.
Yeah, and I will say that we did have someone that wrote in, and we really appreciated he had a really nice, thoughtful email. Matter of fact, he's had a couple, and they were really lovely emails. And he made some suggestions, and he thought. Sorry, I'm reading it right now. I'll kind of read it out loud, the little parts anyway. He's like, regarding the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, like he kind of would like to see the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man on our show. He said he's really falling in love with the Fantastic Four and all that kind of jazz. And I know that he would be interested if we would talk about the Fantastic Four.
There are definitely some big Fantastic Four stories
that we
would like to touch on.
He's gonna want to hear from you specifically about the movie.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm like, I couldn't stop you from talking about that movie.
Well, yeah, we talked about it at quite a length. Was that last week?
Yeah, but when the movie comes out, he's gonna want to hear your opinion about that.
Maybe
right?
we'll do a special bonus episode of just just MCU stuff.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So there's like I told him, like, there's no way that we wouldn't. And then he also mentioned a couple of other things I thought was pretty cool. He would like to have more. He's a horror literature fan and thought maybe it might be kind of cool to hear about the Marvel horror era. And he said, do we have any interest in covering like Frank Miller and the Daredevil run, right?
Both of those are things that we have already discussed.
Matter of fact, it's like, I think he's spying on us because all of those things we have on our long short list.
Yes, we have. Yes, exactly. Something that is going to be coming up before long is a look into Marvel monsters, going all the way back to the pre-Marvel Comics era of, basically giant monsters and B-grade science fiction, through the evolution all the way into some of the later Bronze Age things like Frankenstein, Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, that sort of thing.
Right. Matter of fact, we thought we were going.
Yeah,
we thought we were going to do that last week,
but we decided we needed to do a lot more research.
I did. I certainly did.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
That's a pretty broad topic. So,
matter of fact, if it's not a what am I trying to say? A series, two episode. Thank you. Oh my good Lord!
Yeah,
it's going to be a two-parter. There's no way.
And definitely, the Frank Miller Daredevil has definitely bubbled up as a topic to discuss. And in fact, it kind of appealed to me because even though I have not watched it yet, so no spoilers, people, Daredevil Born Again is airing on Disney Plus now, which seems to be getting pretty favorable reviews. But when I hear the title, Born Again, I am thinking of the classic Frank Miller run of the same name, and that's probably the story we'll touch on. Now, I have no idea if how closely the story that they're adapting for the show, if they could just be borrowing the name, there could be some similarities. I don't know at this point, but that story in the comic is definitely one that I would like to discuss. And even though you might almost argue it slips, maybe it's getting a little iffy whether that's considered Bronze Age or not. It's good enough and close enough. So
we don't have a hard end for the Bronze Age. I just say 1985 for myself because that's when it stopped that's when it stopped for me, and coincidentally, that's what everyone kind of considers the end date.
Yeah,
I want to do that too because there's something about Daredevil that appeals to me now, but I had zero interest as a kid, and I wouldn't pick him up off the shelf for anything. I don't know why.
I didn't either. Old vintage, what you would consider classic Daredevil was never one of my main things. But later issues and later storylines, particularly when Frank Miller was writing for him, caught my eye because you catch, when you're picking up books and you catch the buzz, people are talking about, looking forward to this particular story, that particular thing. And since it's a story that kind of has a fresh jumping in point where you don't have to know a lot about Daredevil because from that point it starts and kind of goes in a new direction. So you don't have to know a lot about the past to jump in. That was one of the places where I did.
What else? I think that's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we want to thank you for writing in. We really do appreciate hearing from you and your suggestions and commentary.
Yeah, it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And it really does because it's nice to know we're talking to somebody, even though we know we get downloads and everything, but it's nice to hear. And well, that's actually kind of the point, right? We've been able to talk back and forth, and that's the whole point of things. We want people to feel like there's a bit of a community or something.
Jump in on the conversation.
Exactly. And we do want people's opinions.
If we could have all of you sitting around the table with us now, we would.
Man, that is a true statement, actually. What else? Oh, just so I'm kind of in love with this whole Blue Sky right now because it's far easier to deal with than what I was hoping to do with Discord. So I'll keep the Discord there, but no one's joining it, and it's okay. So Discord, the Blue Sky, however, is very accessible. So just find us on Blue Sky at Silver to Bronze, and emailing is great as well. So it would be silvertobronze25@gmail.com if you guys feel like you would like to write in and just whatever random thought you have.
Yes.
So.
the more random, the better.
Yeah, probably.
And as I keep saying, that's the only place that you're ever going to be able to claim your no prize.
Yeah, right.
And remember, kids, clip out all those value stamps and save them for later.
Do they have any? They cannot have anything like that today. Okay. Well, Scott, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go. Let's let these guys go, and we'll just see you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Scott.